Okay. Starting with Deathly Hallows. Do you have any questions? Let me start this. Do you have any questions at all about any of the stuff in Half Blood Prince? Comments? I do want to emphasize one thing. And we don't have time because 4 days for in the chapter on Horcruxes, very end of the chapter, Harry and Dumbledore are arguing, because that's what it is. They're arguing about the prophecy, okay? And Dumbledore says, about 4 pages, 3.5 pages before the end of the chapter, if Voldemort had never heard of the prophecy, would it have been fulfilled? Um, 513, 512, 511, somewhere around 510. Harry, begins Harry says, it comes to the thing, Dumbledore. No, it doesn't. You are setting too much store by the prophecy. But you said the prophecy means, if Voldemort had never heard of the prophecy, would it have been fulfilled? Would it have meant anything? Of course not. Do you think every prophecy in the Hall of Prophecy has been fulfilled? Why does he say that? Notice what he's suggesting is Harry's approach to the prophecy. Where does the prophecy come from? According to Harry's way of thinking. Somewhere out there. It's like, okay? Huge like, not the same as. It's like a biblical prophecy. When Isaiah prophesies, when Jeremiah prophesies, when Moses prophesies, when David prophesies, where are all those in kind of traditional Jewish or Judeo-Christian theology? Where do all those prophecies come from? Ultimately, they come from God. Okay? Where do the prophecies come from here? We're not told. All we are told is, in the case of Trelawney goes all weird, voice changes, and she speaks. That's it, okay? Notice, if Voldemort had never heard of the prophecy, would it have been fulfilled? If nobody had ever told him, the time is coming, one who was born at the end of the 7th month, whose parents thrice, defied you, who will be able to defeat you. If he'd never heard that, would he have gone looking? No, he wouldn't have. Simple, sheer logic. Okay? Harry, but last year you said one of us would have to kill the other. He said, only because Voldemort made an error. Okay? So he goes on. They go back and forth. Dumbledore says, by attempting to kill you, Voldemort himself singled out the remarkable person who sits here in front of me. He gave you the tools for the job. Harry's like, no, he didn't. I don't have any tools. Okay? If you remember, this began how? With Dumbledore talking about it will take uncommon skill and power to kill a wizard like Voldemort. Okay? Harry's like, I don't have that kind of power. Anyway, back to where we were. He says, Harry, despite your privileged insight into Voldemort's world, you've never been seduced by the dark arts. Who has? Who have we seen in this book has been seduced by the dark arts? Draco, right? He's got the dark mark. Well, let's be fair to Draco. Maybe he hasn't been seduced. Harry's going to see him crying in the restroom. And what do we find out? Well, we actually kind of found it out in the chapter at the beginning, Spinner's End. Is Draco willingly doing the thing that Voldemort has asked him to do? No, he's not. What does Voldemort have hanging over him? Like Damocles' sword, look it up. His parents' lives. So, you've never shown the slightest desire to become one of them. Of course I haven't. It's like, ew, that's disgusting. You're protected, in short, by your ability to love. The only protection, okay? All the temptation you've endured, all the suffering, you remain pure of heart. Voldemort should have known what he was dealing with. When, what? When you looked into the mirror and put the stone in your pocket. Okay? Now he does know it. You fled it into Voldemort's mind without damage to yourself. He can't possess you, etc., etc. Harry, but it all comes down to the same thing. I've got to try and kill him, or I'm a goner, Dumbledore, got to? Of course you got to. But not because of the prophecy. See, Harry thinks the prophecy means what? The thing you cannot escape from. It's like Oedipus's prophecy. You are fated to kill your father and sleep with your mother. Okay? Dumbledore is saying it's not that. And look at the example he uses. Harry, you won't rest until you've tried. Imagine just for a moment. You never heard of the prophecy. How would you feel about Voldemort? Come on, think. And notice what Harry does. What he says. It's the exact reverse of how Frodo responds to Gandalf. He says, I want him finished, and I want to do it. I want him finished. Passive voice. And I want to do it. Active voice. In Lord of the Rings, Frodo says, I really do wish to destroy the ring. Or to have it destroyed. He starts by saying, actively, I want to destroy it. And then he remembers what that means, going to hell. Or I want somebody else to do it for me. Notice the difference. No, not somebody else. Me. Of course you would. You see, the prophecy does not mean you have to do anything, but the prophecy caused Lord Voldemort to mark you as his equal. You're free to choose, Harry. But if you don't go after him, what's going to happen? He's going to hunt you down. It really does mean that, yeah, in the end, one of us is going to end up killing the other. Yeah, I get it now. Okay. But now Harry understands, and look at what is said. It was, he thought, the difference between being dragged into the arena to face a battle to the death and walking into the arena with your head held high. What does she mean by arena?
I don't know. At least when I think of it, I think about like gladiators and slaves being brought in.
And where are they brought? Let's use the big one. The Roman Colosseum. She doesn't use the word Colosseum, however. Why? Because it has pretty strong connotations to one period of history. Yes, gladiators. Okay? Who did the gladiators often fight? Not just slaves. Those slaves were part of it. Not just wild beasts. From beginning around the year 40 AD, for the next 300 years, Christians. And we have all kinds of written accounts that survive from that period that describe a whole bunch of them who go in, head held high, chest thrust out, and they march in willingly. Yeah, they've been captured. Okay, one of the greatest examples is a guy named Saint Ignatius of Antioch. Okay, Ignatius, we're going to hear a name next book, Ignotus, and we're going to hear, and his brother, I think it is, Antioch, and then there's going to be another brother, Cadmus. Okay, Cadmus isn't necessarily part, but we're going to have Ignotus in Antioch. Okay, Ignatius wrote 7 letters on his way to Rome as he's being taken by Roman soldiers. And these letters are to 7 churches. And in each one of the letters, he says, don't buy me off, because his followers are trying to purchase his freedom. He's like, no, this is the only way I can be a real Christian. I taught these letters in a book on early Christian literature in the Middle East. It's amazing stuff to read it. One of his immediate disciples, another guy named Polycarp, okay, Saints' Day is February 26th, we have a big, long description of his martyrdom and how he walks in calmly. There are examples of Christians who don't go in willingly. They're brought in kicking and screaming. We have lots of examples of slaves, people captured from various parts of the empire, all dragged kicking and screaming. It was, he thought, the difference between being dragged into the arena to face a battle to the death and walking into the arena. Notice, some people, perhaps, would say there's little difference. There's little to choose between the 2 ways. The 2 ways. The 2 ways of what? Dying. What's the difference between the 2 ways? One of them is Voldemort's way. One of them is Dumbledore's way. What does Voldemort's name mean? Fly from death? Flee from death? I was thinking the other day, the Volta could also be related to the Latin word volta, which means turn. Turn from death. Okay? Or it can come from volare, to fly, away, death. Okay? It can be either one of those. Whichever one, it means what? There's death, I'm going this way. Dumbledore's thinking is expressed well for us at the end of book 1. When Harry's like, Nicholas and Perenelle Flamel destroyed the elixir. They destroyed the Philosopher's Stone, but doesn't that mean they'll die? What does Dumbledore say? To one as young as you, yeah, perhaps this is part. But to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. It's an adventure. Ad means to. Venture means going forth. It's a bright new door. Go through, Harry. So Harry comes to this realization on his own. I can be dragged kicking and screaming, or I can face it. Well, we've already seen him face it, right? What does he do in book 4? In the cemetery scene. He's crouching, hiding behind Tom Riddle Sr.'s tombstone, and he's like, I'm not going to die this way. I'm not going to die crouching and hiding. I'm going to die like my dad did. Planted. I'm going to stand up and face it. Okay? But Dumbledore knew, and so do I, thought Harry, that there was all the difference in the world. So, Dumbledore dies. And how does Dumbledore die? Say it out loud.
Severus kills him.
Snape kills him. Professor Snape, I should say, because Dumbledore would remember those virtues. Snape kills him. And notice, when Snape kills him, from whose perspective are we seeing Snape kill him? Louder? Harry's. How is that impossible in the film version? How many of you have seen the film? Where's Harry when Dumbledore dies?
It's like underneath, like a stair.
They're on the astronomy tower, right? You got the battlements here. Okay. Here's the floor, and Dumbledore's over here. He slides down against the wall. He's sitting on his butt. Why? He's weakened by two things. One of which is the potion that he drank gallons of from the cave. Okay? And the other thing, I don't think I'll mention it. He's weakened by something else. Very, 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 very weakened. Okay? He sends Harry to go to Snape, but Harry doesn't leave fast enough. And what does Dumbledore do to him? Louder. Freezes him. Are we told what spell he actually uses? I don't think it's the same one that we saw at the beginning of the book. Okay, I've got to. Dumbledore had wordlessly immobilized Harry. This is on page 583. We're not told what spell he uses. Harry's got his cloak on, and now he's immobilized. What is one of the spells you can use to immobilize somebody? Beginning of the book. Malfoy uses Petrificus Totalis on Harry when he has his invisibility cloak on. Notice the nice symmetry. Okay? Harry is frozen by Malfoy. Malfoy stomps on his face. Harry is frozen by Dumbledore. Malfoy does what to Dumbledore? He uses Expelliarmus and gets his wand. Okay? But in the movie, Harry's down here. He's not up there. He doesn't get to watch what happens between Dumbledore and Malfoy. He doesn't get to see the look on Snape's face when Dumbledore is killed by Snape. What happens here? It's so stupid. Snape comes up and does what? Because Snape sees him. Like, Harry, be quiet. Right after what has happened. What did Sybil Trelawney tell Harry? Snape was the one who heard the prophecy. Snape was the one who told Lord Voldemort. And Harry just blows up at Dumbledore. And Dumbledore finishes that conversation with, I trust Severus Snape. And 10 minutes later, he's dead. Metaphorically, 10 minutes later, he's dead. With a look of hatred and revulsion on his face, we're told. Snape, Avada Kedavra. Harry goes after Snape, etc., etc. Okay? Remember how I pointed out in that book, beginning with the chapter, A Very Frosty Christmas? What question does Harry start to raise with Arthur Weasley and Lupin? How do we know? And Lupin says it's not our job to know. It's our job to what? Trust Dumbledore. Dumbledore trusts Snape, therefore I trust Dumbledore. Therefore I trust Snape. Why? Because I trust Dumbledore. And when Harry tells everybody what happened, what immediately happens? All that trust, out the door. Just gone. Not even a lingering, bit. Well, maybe Severus had to. Nope. Just totally obliterated. Okay? So Harry's left with what? at the end of this book? Despair, right? I mean, his teachers, his mentor, not de-mentor, his re-mentor, the one who built him up so much is gone. He's left alone. Yeah, okay, he's got Ron and Hermione. Woo, big deal. He's got Ginny. Yeah, but he doesn't really have Ginny. Because he, has to go play all Peter Parker-y and LJ and whatever her name is. And no, we can't be together because Voldemort. Like Voldemort's going to go, damn, I can't hurt Ginny Weasley because Harry no longer cares for her. Yeah, right. Okay. So we open this one. So what does Harry decide he's got to do at the end of book 6? What is his new purpose in life? Find the Horcruxes. Right? So, Horcruxes. Let's go over them again very briefly. Diary. Check. Right? 2. Ring. Check. He saw the ring whole and complete. He saw the ring destroyed on Dumbledore's wand hand. 3. What's the next one? Locket. Don't know where that one is. 4. Hufflepuff's cup. Don't know where that one is. 5. 6. What does Dumbledore say one of them is he thinks? Nagini. Actually, I'm going to put Nagini down here as number 6 because he says that's the last one that's got to be destroyed. Okay. Number 5. It will be some relic of either Ravenclaw or Gryffindor, right? No, not Gryffindor. He says Dumbledore said, there's only one known relic of Gryffindor. What does he say it is? He doesn't specifically say. He says there's one known relic of Gryffindor and it's safe. It's implied it's the sword. But that's not right. That's a flaw in Rowling's writing. That's why she really needs to come out with a revised second edition. There are 2 known relics of Godric Gryffindor. What are they? Sword and the hat. The hat in its very first song says, Gryffindor swooped me off his head, and they each put a little bit of brains in me. The hat was Godric Gryffindor's. It always sits where? In Dumbledore's office. Where's the sword? It always sits in Dumbledore's office. Okay? Here's a reason why only that sword could have come out of that hat. Okay? So, something of Ravenclaws. We don't know what yet. Why only 6? Because Dumbledore thinks, because of the question Tom Riddle asked about wouldn't 7 Horcruxes, be most powerful? Dumbledore thinks he only split his soul so that there would be 7 pieces. Why? It's the most magically powerful number. 1 in Lord Voldemort, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Can't talk about what I really want to say because I know some of you haven't read all of this yet. So, with that 25 minutes gone, look at the epigraph. Okay? The beginning word. Epi writing. Beginning or before writing. 2 of them in this book. The first one is from Aeschylus's The Libation Bearers. The Libation Bearers is the middle play in a trilogy of plays. Right? The first one Agamemnon. Second one, Libation Bearers. And the third one is called the Eumenides. Okay? I'm going to give you the 2-minute version for each. I bet you I won't. 2-minute version, Agamemnon. Who's Agamemnon? Anybody know? Anybody know any Greek myth? Agamemnon is one of the leaders of the Trojan War, the Greeks against the Trojans. Okay? King of Ithaca, son of Atreus, and there's a plague upon the house of Atreus because Atreus and his brother Thyestes were doing, I think it was Thyestes, were having a thing, and Atreus carved up his brother's children and fed them to him in a meal to get back at him. Why? Because their ancestor, they trace their line back to Tantalus, from whom we get the verb to tantalize. Okay? And Tantalus spends all of eternity essentially in hell, where he is in a river, starving and thirsty. And he can only reach up so far, and there's a tree with fruit right above him. And the fruit every now and then hangs down, and he can almost touch it. Okay? But he can't. He's tantalized forever. We get the verb from his name, right? So there's, family stuff going on where a brother kills family members and all this kind of stuff. So there's this curse in the house, all right? So Agamemnon gets ready to go off to fight the war, but the gods won't let him until he makes a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is you have to kill your daughter. You have to sacrifice your daughter so that the winds will blow. His wife's like, don't do it. I'm going to be really angry. But he does. Sacrifices his daughter. Okay? He comes back 10 years later. Trojan War takes 10 years. He comes back, and his wife, Clytemnestra, and her boyfriend, Ignotus, kill him. Right? So he gets killed early, relatively early in the play. His son, Orestes, and his sister, whose name just poof, Orestes and she's not named. Oh, blast. Anyways, his son Orestes and his sister, okay, in this play, get revenge. His sister doesn't actually do the deed. The brother does. Orestes gets revenge on his mother by killing her. He kills her and her lover. Okay? So here we have a wife kill her husband. Before the play begins, we have a father kill his daughter. The gods told him to. Okay? Wife kills her husband. Here, son kills the mother. But before he does, she says, don't do this, because if you do, I'm going to hound you forever. And you will release what are called the Furies. These mythological creatures with the face of a woman and bodies like of eagles. I mean, they have breasts, but they have talons. And what they do is they hound the guilty. They hound them both here on earth, and once they die, they hound them in the afterlife. Okay? She says, if you kill me, I'm going to call upon the Furies. So he does kill her, but he kills her because Apollo tells him to. And you don't say no to Apollo, right? And then he runs to pour out libations. Okay? The libation bearers are Orestes and his sister, Electra. His sister, Electra. That's her name. So then he has to run to Athens to seek mercy, essentially from Athena. The Eumenides is about how the Furies are transformed from these hateful revenge goddesses into fertility blessing goddesses. The whole arc of the thing is about the transformation of justice being an idea of revenge to trial by jury. It's a metaphorical, symbolic way of going. You move from revenge to trial by jury. Okay? This passage is from the middle play. Oh, the torment bred in the race. That's talking about the line of Tantalus to Atreus to Agamemnon to the sun, etc. The torment is, you guys are just going to keep killing each other. Okay? The grinding scream of death, the stroke that hits the vein, that is, slicing the neck. The hemorrhage, the bleeding, none can staunch. The grief, the curse no man can bear. The curse is the curse of fratricide, patricide, matricide, icide, But there is a cure in the house and not outside it, no. Not from others, but from them. Who's the them? Their bloody strife. We sing to you, dark gods beneath the earth. That's the Furies. Now hear you blissful powers underground. Answer the call, send help. Bless the children. That's referring to Orestes and Electra. Okay? Give them triumph now. Why does she use that? Who's the children? Who are the children? Harry, Ron, Hermione. And then you get William Penn, Pennsylvania. Death is but crossing the world as friends do the seas. Okay? It's not what, in other words. They live in one another still. Right? How many of you have a loved one? Family member, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. You might have in your wallet, in your possession right now, a picture of that person. Why? It's a reminder. It's kind of like that person is still with you. Maybe that person is no longer alive. You might have a picture of your home of a no longer living loved one. Okay? That's what that is getting at. They live in one another still. Notice, you don't see that loved one. Why? Because they've crossed the seas. For they must needs be present. Why? Because that love and live in that which is omnipresent. Okay? So what is that which is omnipresent? I think it's love. Or, because it's Penn, who is a Quaker, God. 1 John letter, God is love. Shortest definition of God in the Bible. In this divine glass, glass means like glasses, but it also means like, if it doesn't go off, which it just did, you can open your, touch anything and it comes alive. Mirror. In this divine mirror, right, they see face to face. St. Paul, 1 Corinthians. Now we see through a glass darkly, but then, that is, after death and the resurrection, we shall see face to face and know as we are known, he says. And their converse is free as well as pure. In this divine glass, is that love? Is that death? Is that related to her creation of the mirror of Erised? This is the comfort of friends. That is, this is the comfort that comes to friends. That though they may be said to die, yet their friendship and society are in the best sense ever present. Why? Because immortal. Because immortal, not dying. Yes, this dies. But the person, the soul, doesn't die. It goes on. Okay? Dark Lord ascending. So who are the two men who appear on the street? Who walk down, hedges on either side of this long driveway? Snape and Yaxley. Okay? Where are they going? Malfoy Manor. We knew Malfoy was loaded. Now we get an idea how loaded. So they talk. Notice the other one talks more than Snape does. Okay? They go into the house, big dinner table, you know. And we have, around page 3, Voldemort says, Severus here, indicating the seat on his immediate right. Yaxley, beside Doloff. Notice, it's not on my left, you know. Why does he put Snape on his right? Immediate right. He's sitting right next to, Snape is, right next to Lord Voldemort.
Sign of respect.
Keep going. It's more than sign of respect. It is that. It is that.
Most trusted.
Most trusted. That's the seat of power. Okay? You know, when in the New Testament, when after the crucifixion, when people have visions, like when St. Stephen is being stoned to death, he says, I see heaven open up and the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power. That's Christ sitting at the right hand of God. If you remember the Gospels, James and John ask at one point when they're going up to Jerusalem, or their mother asked, can't remember which, you know, Lord, in your glory, can my 2 boys sit on your right and on your left? One on your right and one on your left? He's like, don't ask that. You don't know who those are given for. But bear in mind, who's on Jesus' left? God. What are you going to do? Sit in his lap? Push him off the throne? No. Okay? So, the right hand is the hand of authority, power, glory, honor, dominion, you know, unto ages of ages. Hallelujah, etc. So, that's Snape. Where's Bellatrix? So, the 2 men take their allotted places. And we hear talk that goes back and forth. They're talking about when Harry's going to leave. Number 4, Privet Drive. Let's see here. Yaxley talks about how Dawlish believes in a party of orbs will be used to transfer the boy. And they start to talk about the new Minister of Magic. What's his name? Or the one who will become the new Minister of Magic. He's not yet. Pious Thickness. It has an E on the end, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Pious Thickness. What's that name mean? What's it suggest? First of all, pious. Oh, devoted, holy, devout. Thickness. You've heard of somebody being called dense? Yeah, that's him. Holy dense one. Saint dense. Saint thick. Okay? Who is still Minister of Magic at this point? Rufus Scrimgeour. Okay? So, they keep talking. Voldemort says, yeah, it's a start, but Thickness is only one man. Scrimgeour must be surrounded by our people before I act. One failed attempt, it's going to set me back. Okay? Yaxley goes on. You know, as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, that's what Pious Thickness is now. He has regular contact not only with the minister himself, but also with the heads of all the other ministry departments. It will, I think, be easy now that we have such a high-ranking official under our control to subjugate the others, so they can all work to bring Scrimgeour down. Notice what's being implied there. It's going to take a bunch of them to overthrow Rufus Scrimgeour. Tells us what about him? He's strong. He's powerful. Okay? Look at Voldemort's next words. As long as our friend Thickness is not discovered before he has converted the rest. Why does he use the word converted? Why doesn't he say persuaded? Why doesn't he say imperious? Why doesn't he say controlled? Converted? What kind of language is that? Yeah, thank you. Be loud and proud. Speak of it. It's religious language, right? A Democrat from South Texas, Del Rio, I think, yesterday, just announced he was switching parties. He switched parties. He didn't convert to the Republican cause. He converts others. Why? Conversion implies what? Yeah, you're not just changing your mind. It's lock, stock, and barrel. It's everything. Okay? But notice how he's doing it. Imperious. It's like you lose your will. Traditional kind of Christianity, you do. You give your will up for the will of another, kind of a thing. Okay? It's just very interesting to me, at least, that she uses this kind of language, because it implies what about Voldemort and his followers? Notice, followers. It is like a religion or an occult. Not a cult, a cult. Okay? I was going to say something else. I don't want to jump too far forward. There's something else about that. And I'm drawing a blank of what I was going to say. Okay, let's go on. So, Voldemort asks for Malfoy's wand. Malfoy's like, my lord, like, excuse me, what do you... I record... Okay. So, Voldemort asks, what's your wand made out of? Elm, dragon heartstring. He goes, okay, good. And Malfoy kind of acts like, oh, we're switching wands, so you're taking mine. Give you my wand, Lucius? My wand? I've given you your liberty, Lucius. Is that not enough for you? I've noticed you and your family seem less than happy of late. What is it about my... Oh, no, nothing. We love having you here, Love having this be the headquarters of evil. Okay? Why do the Malfoys, somewhere on that same page, this is, 7 or 8 or 9, why do the Malfoys look so unhappy with their lot? What's meant by lot? I had it up here earlier. Fate. Their situation is my return, my rise to power, not the very thing they profess to desire. Isn't this really what you wanted? Oh, yeah. And notice he's having to wipe sweat from his upper lip. What's that an indication of? What do profilers look for? Military profilers, police profilers, TSA agent profilers. You're standing in the line, you're getting ready to go through, and you're just got beads of sweat beating off you. They're going to pull you aside because that's an indication you're really nervous about something. Okay? And they continue talking. We find out they have a guest who's floating up above. Charity Burbage. What does she teach? Muggle studies. And who has to kill her? Snape. Snape looked back at her, quite impassive, as she slowly turned away. Okay? Or he doesn't stop her. Severus, please. Where did we hear that last? Dumbledore, Severus, please. Severus, please. Okay? Chapter 2. 10:24. Chapter 2. In Memoriam. Harry's bleeding. There's a crunch of breaking glass. he had trodden on a cup of cold tea that had been sitting on the floor outside his bedroom door. Oh, interesting. Have I mentioned that before? Where's he bleeding? Clutching his right hand. Okay, clutching his right hand in his left. Hold on, I've got to double check something. Oh, it would have been so good if she had done that, but she didn't. He must have been wearing shoes. So why is he bleeding in his hand? So he's doing what? He's holding his right hand in his left. So his right hand is the one injured, which is also his wand hand. A little bit of foreshadowing, by the way. I was gonna say, ooh, really, really cool, because I'd forgotten it was his hand. Why would it have been especially good if she'd made Harry bleeding from the foot? In terms of symbolism. The curse in Genesis. He shall bruise thy heel, and thou shalt crush his head. That is, the descendant of Adam and Eve will get wounded on the heel. Okay, it's taken to be a messianic prophecy, crucifixion through the heel, and he shall crush thy head. How? The bruising of the heel, the crucifixion, is what crushes, Satan's head. There's all kinds of stuff done with those images throughout medieval and later literature. But she doesn't do it. Instead, she uses the hand, which is totally fine. So, Harry thinks that possibly the cup of tea was Dudley's idea of a clever booby trap. In other words, damn you, Dudley. Okay? So, we get a couple pages in. This is 13, 14, somewhere around page 15 or so. Elphias Doge's article, obituary, call it what you want, on Dumbledore. And the second paragraph after that ends. He had thought he knew Dumbledore quite well, but ever since reading this obituary, he had been forced to recognize he had barely known him at all. Never once had he imagined Dumbledore's childhood or youth. It was as though he had sprung into being as Harry had known him, venerable and silver-haired and old. Now think about that for a moment. Let's try to play psychiatrist or psychologist for Harry. Why would Harry think that? Notice, it was as though he had sprung into being as Harry had known him. Why might Harry think that or act that way?
Like a father figure in a way.
True.
So he's considered to be older.
True. What's Harry's only experience of Dumbledore? How he was. He did spring into Harry's being exactly this way. Harry's first and only experience of Dumbledore was like this. It's not like Harry went to Dumbledore's office and Dumbledore said, Harry, sit down. I want to talk to you about my childhood. That would be impertinent. It would be irrelevant. Okay? He had never thought to ask Dumbledore about his past. Dumbledore is 100 plus. Harry is almost 17. And their relationship is student to headmaster. That would be kind of equivalent, not quite exact, but it works. One of you going down to, Dr. McPhee's office, knocking on the door, going in, not waiting for that, and going, so, Sid, tell me what life was like for you 40 years ago. Who the hell are you? Get out of my office. That would kind of be, though knowing Dumbledore, he'd probably say, have a lemon drop and we'll talk, No doubt it would have felt strange, impertinent even, but after all, it had been common knowledge Dumbledore had taken part in that legendary duel with Grindelwald. Harry had known about that since when? His very first Hogwarts Express train ride to Hogwarts, because he got chocolate frog cards, and he had a Dumbledore, and it talked about his defeat of Grindelwald. It talked about his work with Nicholas Flamel on the Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone, the use of Dragon Heartstring, a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Then we see the little advert for the Rita Skeeter piece. And then Harry finds and reads all of that. And we finish. Harry reached the bottom of the article, but continued to stare blankly at the page. Revulsion and fury rose in him like vomit. When was the last time Harry had kind of revulsion and fury rise in him like that? It's not after Sirius dies. It's not when he's in Dumbledore's office. He's angry. Yeah, he's ready to kill. But it's not described like this. This is in book 5 when he sees Dumbledore and Voldemort kind of is working his mind. Just before they touch the port key, he and Dumbledore exchange glances, and Harry just wants to bite him. He balled up the newspaper through it with all his force at the wall. Okay? He walks around to clean. Harry thinks, lies. These are all lies, And he sees a flash of brightest blue. The broken bit of mirror. What mirror? The two-way mirror that Sirius gave him. But now he sees a blue eyeball. Sirius didn't have blue eyes. Who did? Dumbledore did. And he's thinking, what? The Dursleys departing. Okay, this is about the same pagination. So, Harry's talking with Vernon, trying to persuade him, go through with it, because Vernon's having second thoughts. And Harry says around 33, these accidents aren't accidents. The crashes, explosions, derailments, everything else, people are disappearing and dying, and he's behind it. Voldemort, I've told you this over and over again. He kills muggles for fun. Even the fog. And Dudley's like, wait, stop. There's more of them? You mean there's more of those Dementor things? Harry, yes. Vernon, okay. You made your point. We're going. Okay? But then he stops. Well, what about my work? Harry, don't you understand? They will torture and kill you like they did my parents. Like they did my parents. Why were Harry's parents killed? To get to Harry. Why did Harry's parents die? Another way of putting it. Because they weren't going to let Voldemort get Harry without a fight. Okay? What idea, possibly, just going way out on a limb here, is Harry starting to express to us? Maybe about the Dursleys. He cares for them. They're all he has left. Dudley, Dad, I'm going. And once Dudley says that, Vernon and Petunia are gone too. So, the order shows up, okay? And Hestia Jones says to Daedalus, we should wait outside so Harry can say goodbye. So Vernon starts to go out the door. Petunia heads towards the door. And this is around page 36, maybe 35. Dudley reaches the living room door. No, actually, your book, my numbers tell me this is pages 39 and 40. Dudley says, I don't understand. Petunia, what don't you understand, Pumpkin? He points at Harry. Well, why isn't he coming? Harry's explaining. Voldemort's going to try and get me. Stroke of midnight on my birthday. All hell breaks loose. So what does Dudley naturally think? Then you should come with us wherever we're going. Vernon, what? Why isn't he coming too? Well, he doesn't want to. You don't want to, right? You don't want to, do you? Harry, not in the slightest. There you go. Come on, Dud. Where is he going? Notice what Dudley's question doesn't say, but implies. Okay. Yes, that's even more tenuous than what I'm looking for. Yes. Where's Harry going to be protected? What's going to protect Harry? If he's not going to be with us, he's going to be protected somewhere else, right? Hestia Jones, you know where your nephew's going, don't you? Vernon, certainly we know. He's off with some of your lot. In other words, no, we don't really know where he's going. We just know some of you guys are going with him. Excuse me, off with some of our lot? What do you mean by that? Harry, just give it up. Just don't worry about it. Let it go. Hestia, it does matter. Don't these people realize what you've been through? What danger you are in? No, they don't. They think I'm a waste of time. Excuse me, they think I'm a waste of space, actually. But I'm used to. I don't think you're a waste of space. Notice, Harry doesn't finish. Dudley interrupts. They think I'm a waste of space, actually, but I'm used to. I don't think you're a waste of space. If Harry had not seen Dudley's lips move, or mips move, he might not have believed it. As it was, he stared at Dudley for several seconds before accepting it must have been his cousin who had spoken. For one thing, Dudley had turned red. Harry was embarrassed and astonished himself. Dudley turns red. Harry turns red. Thanks, Dudley. You saved my life. Not really. It was your soul the Dementor would have taken. And he looks at Dudley. It now dawned on Harry, however, the cup of cold tea on which he had trodden that morning might not have been a booby trap at all. Although rather touched, he was nevertheless quite relieved that Dudley appeared to have exhausted his ability to express his feelings. After opening his mouth once or twice more, Dudley subsided into scarlet-faced silence. So, Harry doesn't finish the thought. If it wasn't a booby trap, what was it? Act of kindness. From Dudley. Aunt Petunia burst into tears. So sweet, Dudley. Dudders. Such a lovely boy saying thank you. Hestia Jones. He hasn't said thank you. He only said he didn't think Harry was a waste of space. And then Harry does what he does all throughout the books. He takes a comment and he interprets it. He tells us what he thinks the other person meant. Into book 2. The night in which you received that scar, Lord Voldemort transferred some of his powers to you. Harry, you mean he put a bit of himself into me? And notice, Dumbledore doesn't go, come on, Harry, you lack subtlety, like Snape says. How does Harry interpret, I don't think you're a waste of space? Coming from Dudley, that's like I love you. Not in the film. It's not in the theatrical release. says Harry. So Harry just heard Dudley say, I love you. How does Harry respond? Right? Because every time I love you is said, what does that mean? Reply. Come on. So Vernon yells, are we going or not? They all go. Good luck. And they start to walk out. Dudley breaks away from Petunia and comes back to Harry. Holds out his hand to shake. Blimey, Dudley. Did the Dementors blow a different personality into you? What was the term they used to describe what Pius Thickness is doing at the ministry? Has Dudley been converted? If he has a new personality blown into him, then what? The old Dudley is dead. It's like now there is a new Dudley. Old, new. The old Adam, St. Paul talks about, in the new Adam. That's the whole purpose of that conversion language. Okay? It's like Dudley has been changed. Dudley, don't know. See you, Harry. Yeah, says Harry. Maybe. Takes Dudley's hand, shakes it, and then says what? Take care, Big D. Why? What does saying Big D mean? It's not like he uses it at the beginning of Order of the Phoenix. Hey, Big D, who you been beating up tonight? Who calls him Big D? Pierce Polkus and Dudley's gang. Why does Harry call him Big D? I'm part of your gang. Harry has just closed the gap. Dudley starts the closing of the gap. How? The tea. What is the tea? It's like a peace offering. Harry thinks it's a practical joke until Dudley says you're not a waste of space. The gap is getting narrower. Okay? When Harry says, take care of Big D, what's that the indication of? What was once totally broken is now repaired. This is a new relationship. Notice Harry says, when Dudley says, Dudley just holds out his hand. Harry, yeah. Dudley, see you, Harry. Notice, it's not goodbye. See you. See you is what you kind of say when you mean to see somebody again. This is Dudley kind of expressing maybe a little future hope. Harry, maybe take care of Big D. And Rowling tells us, I think it is in the Pottermore stuff, later on, Harry sees Dudley about once a year. Not drinking buddies, not best friends, but there is a relationship. He's, other than Vernon and Petunia, the only family he has left, other than, Jenny and the little kids and such. Okay? Why does Rowling give us that scene? What might it be an indication of what may follow? Because what does that show us? Think of this. And this. It's Dudley's redemption. It's Dudley's moving away from the Muggle version of what kind of belief? Who is Dudley in the Muggle world? Or what does Dudley in the Muggle world kind of compare to in the Wizarding world? Malfoy, little. Voldemortish, kind of. Yeah. How does he get his jollies? Like the Death Eaters, man. Beating up people. And now he changes. All right? We could go from here to the end of the novel. Not the epilogue, but the battle. The big battle. The really, really big battle in the Great Hall. Because of something that happens there that also is not in the theatrical release. 2 very, very key scenes are removed that make, if your only experience of these books is the film version, that make the books exactly what a lot of my terminology, wacko, rabid, anti-Rowling Christians say the books are all about. Revenge. When I don't think they are. If you include these 2 scenes and a bunch of other things that are discussed. Okay? I think they're about that one more than they are this one. So, the 7 Potters. They tell the Aurors and such, the Order of Phoenix, tell Harry, got to do polyjuice potion. Harry's like, no, why not? Louder?
It puts everyone else at risk.
Puts everyone else at risk. Again, we could go to the end of the book. Okay? Harry doesn't want anyone to die for him. He doesn't want anyone to put themselves at risk for him. So, they do the polyjuice. Moody gets some of Harry's hair, or Harry grabs his hair. They drop it in, and notice, what color does Harry's polyjuice potion turn? Or what does it look like? Gold. Okay? Crabbe and Goyle's looked like what? Anybody remember? Snot. Bogies, as it was described. Okay? And they're like, ew. It turned a clear, bright gold. Why? Red and gold colors of Gryffindor? Possibly. Why else gold? What did Dumbledore say in the previous book, not quite the end, but about Harry's soul, or about Harry? Notwithstanding all the temptation, all the abuse, all the suffering, he still remains pure. Pure. This is kind of like the final working out, nearly, of the Philosopher's Stone imagery. Because what does the Philosopher's Stone do? It's about transformation. Okay? We're seeing Harry's transformation. And we hear Hermione go, "Ooh, you look much tastier than Crabbe and Goyle, Harry," before catching sight of Ron's raised eyebrows. Like, what the? Oh, you know what I mean. And then she says, Goyle's look like bogies. Okay? So, back up for just a moment. What do we now know about Ron and Hermione? It's already started. They finally connect. They don't hook up. That, terminology doesn't apply. And Harry and Ginny. Okay? So, they all get ready to leave, and we're told, this is around probably 52 or so. "And you're with me, Harry," said Hagrid. "We'll be on the bike. Grooms and Thestrals can't take me weight. See, not a lot of room on the seat with me on it, though, so you'll be in the sidecar." In other words, leaves as he comes. Because notice, he arrives like this, and he arrives like this. What's missing? He arrives like this. Then Hagrid comes, 11th birthday. Hagrid takes him to Gringotts, takes him to Diagon Alley. And what does Hagrid get him? First death. Right there. You know, when we see that, they're going to start falling like flies. Okay? And notice, Voldemort attacks, Snape attacks, okay? We turn the page, chapter 5, Fallen Warrior. She is a sadistic person. J.K. Rowling. Why? What does that chapter title lead us, before we read anything, chapter title and first word, lead us to believe? It's Hagrid. That's cruel. That's just really, really cruel. Hagrid, Harry struggled to raise himself out of the debris of metal and leather that surrounded him. Hagrid, talk to me, but the dark mass did not stir. Okay? So we hear others come in. Finally, Hagrid moves, and because imagine if Harry loses Hedwig and then Hagrid. That would be a total different trajectory, right? I mean, that's going to tell you the book's just going to go all the way downhill. So, skipping a bit, Lupin's there, Ginny's there, Mrs. Weasley and Arthur and such, and we're told, Harry says Death Eaters were waiting for us. Let's see, what did they say about 5 pages in? Where is it where somebody raises the idea that somebody at the Order betrayed them? Because Harry says around 69, maybe 70, maybe 68, none of the Order would have told Voldemort we were moving tonight. The idea was dreadful to him. He could not believe it of any of them. Voldemort only caught up with me towards the end. He didn't know which one I was in the beginning. If he'd been in on the plan, he'd have known from the start I was the one with Hagrid. Lupin, he caught up with you? How'd you escape? How did they recognize you? What had you done? Harry tried to remember. That is, how did Voldemort know to come for you, Harry? And Harry's sitting there, I saw Stan Shunpike. The bloke who was the conductor on the night bus. I tried to disarm him instead of, he doesn't know what he's doing. He must be imperious. Harry says, I tried to disarm him. He used Expelliarmus. Lupin, Harry, the time for disarming is past. Okay, where were they when Harry used Expelliarmus on Stan Shunpike? Hundreds of feet in the air. At least stun if you aren't prepared to kill, Lupin says. Harry, we were hundreds of feet up. Stan's not himself. And if I stunned him and he'd fallen, he'd have died the same as if I'd used Avada Kedavra. Stan's not himself. In other words, Stan, like Gollum, is still capable of being restored. Expelliarmus saved me from Voldemort 2 years ago. Lupin, come on, Harry. And a great number of Death Eaters witnessed that happening. And then notice what he says. Forgive me, but it was a very unusual move then. What's he mean by move? Expelliarmus is what? It's a spell. It shows what? If you're able to do it. It shows a certain skill. Lupin says it was an unusual move. Is that another way of putting? It'll take uncommon skill and power. Dumbledore's words in that chapter at the end of Horcruxes. Uncommon. Harry uses this against people trying to kill him. Okay? So you think I should have killed Stan Shunpike? Of course not. Harry's like, okay, Lupin, make your choice, man. Don't kill him, but kill him. If I'd stunned him, he'd have died. But, Harry, they would have expected you to attack back. Expelliarmus is a useful spell, Harry, but the Death Eaters seem to think it is your signature move. Why do they think that? Because it is his signature move. Why? What is Harry all about? Even Lucius Malfoy saw this. Why does Harry use Expelliarmus on Stan Shunpike? He's trying to protect him. Harry uses Expelliarmus to protect not only himself, the other person. Why? You take that wand out of their hands, and they're no longer a threat. They're no longer dangerous. Harry, I won't blast people out of my way just because they're there. That's Voldemort's job. Anybody else do something like that? Not blast like kill. Anybody else that you could say, I won't curse people just because they're there? James, Sirius, Snape. Harry's telling us, I'm not like them. I'm not like my father was. What did he tell Dumbledore? I can't kill anybody. I can't kill him. If that's what it's going to come down to, I'm going to die. Okay? They keep talking. Fred and George come in. And let's see here. They're tending to George. Harry asks, how is he? Mrs. Weasley says, I can't make it grow back, not when it's been removed by dark magic. It could have been so much worse. He's alive. Yeah, said Harry. Thank God. In the previous book, Mrs. Weasley says, thank God. Now you're going to hear thank God a whole bunch of times. It's like 6 times in this novel. It's first brought up, first used in the previous book. Okay? So, they talk to George, and they ask George, how are you feeling, George? Saint-like. What? Fred, what's wrong with him? He thinks George has lost his mind. Saint-like. You see, and then notice, I'm holy, he says, and it's spelled that way. And then we get italics. Holey. What does the italics tell us? Because normally in books, if somebody is spelling a word out for somebody else, you know what is usually done? It's usually like this. And the dashes are indicating each letter is being spelled out. You can't, if you're thinking narration, you can't tell that from this. Okay? Fred, get it? George, pathetic. With the whole wide world of ear-related humor before you, you go for wholly, name an ear joke. Whole wide world of ear-related humor. Okay? What's the real pun there? If he's wholly, as it's first used, then he's what? This like. In fact, he even says, saint-like. So, continue. Saint George, patron saint of England, who fought, according to, the children's story version of St. George, who fought a dragon. And all the iconography of St. George is of a guy on horseback with a big long lance and the spear of the lance through the dragon's throat. Saint-like. Well, who was St. George battling? The dragon and his minions. Okay? What else is this indicating? George is now what forever? Scarred. Okay? Kind of like those Christians in the arena who go in. He's not a martyr, however. Right? Martyrs die for something. So, Bill comes in. And we hear again, around, 60, what is this, 2 pages under? No, that's 6 pages over so far. So somewhere around 75, 76 maybe. Mrs. Weasley says, thank God, And we find out who the fallen warrior is. It's Mad-Eye. Harry felt as though something inside him was falling through the earth, leaving him forever. Okay? Around 79. Yeah, 79, page 7980. They're talking about what could have happened. How could Voldemort have known? And someone suggests Mundungus Fletcher. Bill says no, couldn't have been Mundungus. He couldn't have betrayed us. They didn't know there would be 7 Harrys. Tonks says, you know who acted exactly as Mad-Eye expected him to. Mad-Eye said he'd expect the real Harry to be with the toughest, most skilled Aurors. That's why Mad-Eye's dead. He chased Mad-Eye first. And when Mundungus gave them away, Mundungus was polyjuiced as Harry. He switched to Kingsley. So, Mad-Eye, Kingsley, who's the next? Most powerful of those that were there. Fleur. Yes, and that is all very good, but still he does not explain how they knew we were moving Harry tonight, does he? Somebody must have been careless. Somebody let slip the date to an outsider. It is the only explanation for them knowing the date but not the whole plan. What's Fleur saying? There's a mole in our midst. There's a spy. Okay? Harry, no. If somebody made a mistake, let something slip, they didn't mean to do it. It's not their fault. He repeats that again. We've got to trust each other. I trust all of you. I don't think anyone in this room would ever sell me to Voldemort. Lupin, kind of looking at Harry. Harry, you think I'm a fool? No, I think you're like James, who would have regarded it as the height of dishonor to mistrust his friends. And why did he mention that? Maybe James should have mistrusted Peter Pettigrew just a little bit, you know. Harry knew what Lupin was getting at. Okay? So they decide somebody's got to go get Mad Eye's body. Why? Two reasons. Needs a funeral. Why? What can corpses be used for? In fairy. Why else? Almost every culture on Earth, historically and up to the present, suggests when somebody dies, you do something. Christian tradition, there's a burial. Viking tradition, you know, there's a burial, you put it on the boat, you know, the fire, the whole 9 yards. Many traditions, you cremate it. And then what? You bury the ashes. That is, the body is somehow sacred. You don't leave it out for the dogs and birds of prey to eat. You do that to your enemies. Moody needs a proper burial. How are we going to see that happen? It's much later in the book. Harry's going to find something that belonged to Lupin. What does he do with it? He buries it under a tree, and then he does one of the, to me, most enigmatic things in the entire book. Anybody remember what he does? He uses his wand, and he puts a cross on the tree where where Moody's eye has been buried. Why? I'll just stop there because that's a good place to stop. Why? Why put a Christian symbol over Mad Eye's eye? Okay, we'll stop there. We'll have to get a lot further on Thursday. Wake up, computer.